Howdy, Ags. We got a lot to talk about tonight. I've got about an hour's worth of ride to get through it all. So tonight we're going to be looking over what's happening in basketball. Buzz Williams getting left out of the tournament. College football playoff. The NIL still sticking around. Baseball, softball. I'm going to talk about the Rudder Foundation as well, and then some other goings on around campus. So like, subscribe, and grab a glass, and let's talk. All right, so I think what's most prominent on everybody's mind right now is we're in the NIT. So we got left out of the NCAA tournament. Sad day, honestly, sad day. I think I had my feud with Lenardi on Twitter, like everyone else. It's ridiculous. And I think this actually gets into a lot of good conversation about college football as well, because here's the deal. We have 64 teams getting in this thing. We were arguably the 65th team. If we were going to be the 64th team, what really was going to be our expectation, moving forward? I mean, I was optimistic. I think we could have made a Sweet 16 run. It's very possible. We were on fire in the SEC tournament, just barely coming up short to Tennessee. But still, we're arguing about the 64th team getting in here, and the precedent is that there's really not that much going on. So we're going to kind of dissect that a little bit more, and I'm going to kind of take you through, if I had my druthers, what would the college football playoff look like? How would we fix college football? Because there's a lot going on to it. So, but first, if you haven't, the basketball team just beat the hell out of Wake Forest on Wednesday night. We're going to be playing in Madison Square Garden in the NIT Final Four, essentially. We are going to play on the 29th against Washington State. And then if we win that, we're either going to be going up against Xavier or St. Bonaventure on the 31st. So looking to win this one and make a statement and say, look, we should have gotten in that tournament. I believe we should have. I think the problem is, though, is that it's not transparent. Lunardi, whatever his name is, said that his formula is super secret. He doesn't release it out. It wouldn't be such a big deal if the average Joe knew exactly which teams were supposed to get in. We talk about expanding the college football playoff from 4 to 8, and I've always said this argument. We are going to see arguments over who's the 8th team to get in, who's the 12th team to get in, the 16th team to get in. That's not going to stop, because if it's available, you want to get in. And here we are, 64 teams getting in this thing, and we are still arguing over who that 64th team is. And look, it was a massive misstep that they had by leaving us out. There was a lot of teams they should, and we can rehash all that. But suffice to say, if you're going to look at one piece of criteria like the middle of the season, losing 8 games in a row, and say that's the only reason why we should have been left out, how many other reasons were there that we beat other teams that would have put us in? You can't look at just one and say we need to get left out. But that's not really that clear as to why. That was the excuse given, but we really don't know that for sure. There's no set of criteria you or I can go look at and say, oh, that's why. People have said, you want to mirror the college football playoff from the NFL, but I think there are some really distinct differences in this, because the NFL's got 32 teams, not 120, and they're taking about half of those, I think, or is it maybe 12 or 14? They've got a wild card. You know how every team's going to get in, and you can go pick those, and then you know how that's supposed to progress. There's not some committee that seems like they're doing something behind the scenes. It looked like this committee was doing something the entire time that was not meant to be, that was manipulated, maybe corrupted. Who knows? It did not make sense to the average person, and there were schools upon schools that were on our side. And I said on Twitter, if you want to follow me on Twitter, you're more than welcome to ATM Cold Chills, that this is BS, because there were so many teams that were on our side, and Notre Dame wasn't clapping back. If Notre Dame really thought they had an argument, they would have been clapping back. That's all there is to it. But they weren't. And so that's some validation. So best move we can do is go out and win the NIT. But looking at the college football playoff, I think there's two categories of people. There are those who are looking for more entertainment value. And then there's those that want to find the best team. I tend to put myself in the category of I want to know who's the best team. I think we can do that. We were doing it pretty well with the BCS. You arguably got the right team 9 out of 10 times. Expanding it to 4 virtually ensures that you included the correct team and that the number 4 team is just not likely to win. If you move to 8, sure, you would have an expanded probability of getting the correct team in there, and whoever wins out of those 8 teams is no question the champ. But you can only continue that so far. Are you going to include 16? Or are you going to include 32? You can't keep on like that. Obviously, football doesn't set up for that. But what you want is a reasonable assurance that you got the right team in, and then you also want to be able to have entertainment value. People don't want to see Alabama play the same team over and over. I respect that point. I really don't want to see that necessarily either, but I tend to side more on I want to get the right team in. I want to know who the best team is at the end of the year. So we got snubbed in 2020 when we got left out of the 4 spot. Notre Dame took that. So it's kind of hurt that Notre Dame took our potentially, among other teams, perhaps Michigan in the NCAA playoff. But there are different folks, different strokes for different folks on this, and I appreciate each one of them. But I want to find the best team. So how do we fix this? I'm not against going to 8 teams, but if I had my druthers, if I were going to get anything I wanted to out of this whole deal for college football, here's how I would fix it. Now, full disclosure, I know that there's going to be some things that are like obvious sort of deterrents to this, or at least roadblocks. I'm getting whatever I want in this, so I'm kind of tossing all those aside. So you're going to have to just bear with me on and biting down on not mentioning those things. And I'll point at least one of them out. Okay, so here's what I would do first off. I would take all the Power 5 conferences, and I would combine them into 4 conferences. G5, you would then go into your own conference, and then you would have your own playoff, and you would not be a part of, say, the upper division, the championship division, as I'm kind of thinking of it. And then you've got the G5 group, and you can kind of call that maybe the FBS or whatever. But I think, you put the current Power 5 teams in a championship division. Now, here's what I don't like about that off the bat. Okay, so this is the first thing I'm going to point out that I don't like about it, which is that I want to see some ability for mobility to take place between the G5 teams and the Power 5 teams for them to have access to be able to move up. I didn't like that Cincy got in this last year. I didn't think they were worthy. I think any of us Aggies playing the schedule that we're playing know that if we played Cincinnati's schedule, we're running through that schedule very similarly, and that they are struggling with our schedule a lot. So I don't want to hold them out. I want to be equitable in that sense. So I want them to have a way to get through. So I would make the G5 era a 4-team conference as well, and they would have sister conferences. And so much like the soccer model, you would have a promotion schedule, and you would have specific, the champion of each league gets to move up into the sister champion, and the team in last place and that championship conference moves down. So this is where I'm going to point out one more time, there's some obvious things. And when you're going to do this, I'm basically saying that you have to separate football, basketball, baseball, and all the other sports. So football would have to operate on its own. Well, Kansas, Kentucky, some other schools not going to like that deal. Who, especially Kansas, not doing well in football any year, and would be on that borderline bumping down. Good news with that is when they bump down, they're going to be more evenly matched with that competition. And this is also a filtering mechanism so that you bump teams up. Whenever I used to play racquetball at the rec, it was a format similar to this. I might have started off on court 10, and if I won, I moved up to court 9. If I won again, I moved up to 8, and up and up and up until I got to court 2. Well, as soon as I got up to court 2, and as I moved up, I was playing people with more and more skill, and so the matches became more and more even, versus if I went down to court 20, I am just spanking this person, and it's just not even fun. So if we want more parity, that's one of the ways to get it. So we go into 4 conferences. And then from there, essentially what I would do is I would set criteria. I would essentially say split each one of those conferences into divisions, and then the 2 divisions play in a championship game for that conference, and then the conference champion and the runner-up both go to the playoff and do an 18 playoff. There's no ambiguity there. Everybody knows that, and you don't have to worry whether or not we got it. You can change the rules each other, but at least you started at the beginning of the year knowing what you had to do to get in. I think that's the biggest problem. At the beginning of the NCAA season, we had no idea what we actually had to do to get in. You could say, well, you just win the conference and you get in. Win the tournament, your conference tournament, you get in. Yeah, but there's like 30 more spots to get in. What do you got to do to get into one of those 30 other spots? People could say it doesn't matter, but they're available. They're going to put people in there, so how do you get them in there? You've got Joe Schmo over here who thinks he holds the college basketball Bible that tells him how to get in, like he's college basketball God, and so we're supposed to listen to him about who's supposed to get in. What makes his opinion better than any of ours? Exactly, it doesn't. So that's how I would fix it. I think that just makes everything more clear-cut and more easy. So why we're not doing something like that, I think, probably has a lot to do with power grabs. It's hard not to be cynical about it, but that's what I think. So tell me what you think. Do you think that's a fix? What do you like about it? I mean, I'm sure there's some other drawbacks. You're welcome to put them in the comments, by all means. But until I think we get something that's transparent, we're always going to have the bickering about who should be in that last spot. I don't hear people arguing about who gets the wild card spot in NFL. Why? Because everybody knows who's supposed to be in there. The rule stays the same each year. It's an even playing field because you know what you need to do. So either go out and do it or don't. It's on you. That's how I do it. All right, so what else is going on? NIL. Man, it's just rearing its head again. Lane Kiffin in the news recently. He finally made a statement kind of doing his clap back to what Jimbo said. And I just kind of wish he'd keep his mouth shut. Jimbo didn't call him a clown, but he basically knew who Jimbo was talking about, even though Jimbo didn't quite say it, because he said these are, basically clown comments that are being said whenever. And what happened was that Lane Kiffin said that he was wondering whether or not we were going to have to pay a luxury tax. Again, here I am talking about this with the college football nerds as well. Please go check out that thread on my Twitter feed. It's people saying that we are paying the $31 million for this class, and it's like there's no other reason why this could be. Again, I have just continued to echo this point, and I got some interesting replies back from the nerds, and they have great ideas and great thoughts, but sometimes I wonder where these things are grounded in. Same way with Kiffin. If you're going to make these comments, and you're going to say we pay a luxury tax, you can be funny all you want, and that's fine. And if this is satire, by all means, go ahead. I'm laughing. I saw the tweet to Lincoln Riley the other day whenever Lane Kiffin got his shirt about how he's the portal king or something, and he tweets at Lincoln Riley saying, "I think they meant to send this to you." Whatever, that's all fun, but if you're going to make that claim and those suggestions, where's your evidence? I'm just asking for evidence. When did we get to a point where, if you're going to do that and you're going to run with it, where's the evidence? I'll listen to Sliced Bread, Ambro Bible, if they've got evidence. I'm not opposed to that. I'll listen to it. I think it's not being done illegally anyways, whatever's being done. So I think we're probably on top of it more than anybody else. So I'm not really that worried about it, but still, when people are insinuating that we did that, I still am wondering, how did we outbid other teams? I pointed out here on the last time around, but it's still coming back up again. It's like we're trying to talk about whether or not Jimbo's going to LSU anymore. Yeah, that was a funny press conference question today, where he's settled in. He's been settled in, and he didn't think anybody else thought that. Because all the rumors that are flying around. It's like, when are these things going to die down, and when are people going to start seeing the actual truth? He didn't go anywhere. This NIL stuff is all bogus. It doesn't make any sense to me how we're going to outbid people who are paying their coaches more than us. And I'll put a link in the description. You can go see what we're like. Got the 8th highest paid coach at this point. Saban's making like $9.5 million. How are we outbidding Alabama for recruits, if that's the case? Don't they have just as much money as us? So I was faced with reply back from the nerds. Don't you think y'all got more money than Alabama? What I think is irrelevant. Do I believe that? Probably I believe we've got more than Alabama, but whenever I point out that they're paying their coach more than us, they must have some money if they're paying Nick Saban more than us. Now, does he deserve more? Yeah, absolutely. But they still ponied up. Maybe our boosters are more motivated. That's a possibility. Are they more motivated than Alabama's? I kind of doubt it. But maybe they're more loose with their pocketbook. I don't know. Again, how all this is completely set up is a little bit mysterious still. But still, I'm still wondering how we outbid them. How do we outbid Notre Dame? The point is that we're not. We didn't outbid Texas. We can't outbid Texas at this point. I mean, we can, but we can't. It's just to say they've got money too. I mean, they can match it. Let's not be naive. Notre Dame can match it. USC can match it. Michigan can match it. Probably Clemson. Oregon's got Nike money. Oklahoma is such a solid program as well. Who can't match these kinds of monies? If we paid $31 million, how many teams of Texas has bought out their coach for basically that much money? It's not a whole heck of a lot of money. So I don't really think that's the true or the primary reason. It just doesn't seem to make any sense. You got other teams that even have bigger endowments. That was something that was pointed out to me. I was like, what do endowments have to do with this? The nerds are like, well, y'all have got a $14 billion endowment, and like Alabama has like a 1.7. I don't care about endowments. What does that have to do with sports? I'm looking at college coach salaries. That has way more to do than endowments. So, not understanding the NIL stuff. Kiffin, you made clown comments. You got a clown response. Don't be a clown unless you want to join the circus. That's all I got to say about that. So, other news. Baseball took 2 or 3 over the last weekend from LSU. I think the number 14 team in the nation. First series of the year for us in the SEC. Great start. We almost had the sweep. It was close. Didn't quite pull it off. Tuesday went out and beat Rice, I think 15-8. Bats really came alive. I think the bullpen was a little bit sketchy on that. But that is a Tuesday night, right? So we're not necessarily looking at the series. But apparently the bullpen's been pretty solid so far. So I remember watching TCU when they were playing us, and they always have a strong rotation that's going on there. And I'm looking forward to seeing what Schloss can develop with us. It was definitely something. We've always had strong pitchers, but it almost seemed sometimes like they were underachieving. So we got our second series coming up this weekend with Auburn. We'll see what we can do there. It'd be great to start off SEC play taking the first 2 series. Be really, really big. So yeah, I'm going to try and maybe get out there pretty soon for a game. Not sure whenever I can make it. Spring break was packed, but man, I really want to get out and see the bubbles. A lot of excitement, I think, going on in the program, and like to see the renovations and additions. So I've also heard there's a few different changes there, and I'm curious as to what those are. But Who knows? We'll see. I heard they were going to get rid of the rifleman. I hope that's not true. Somebody put in the comments if you know. Did they get rid of the rifleman yet? Please say they kept that. One of my favorites. Now, softball, they're 18-10 so far. They started off SEC play a couple weeks ago. They got swept by Auburn. Then they lost 2 out of 3 to Florida. They beat Houston Baptist this last week 5-4. And they got a series with Georgia coming up. So we talked about this beforehand. What does it look like whenever coaches are kind of on their way out? I'm wondering if Coach Evans is on the hot seat. Getting swept, losing another series after that. I mean, we'll see where it goes. The basketball team, had that 8-game skid, and they bounced back, and that to me means a lot. I didn't have Buzz on the hot seat anyways, but Coach Evans, she's been there for a while, and this isn't the first go around with getting some results like this. So I think she's a great coach. I'm just not sure where the missing link is at this point. So maybe it's time for a change. We'll see. We'll see what Bjork says or is thinking. I think it was definitely the right time for Blair to go out. Maybe it could have been a year earlier, but it was definitely after this season we saw it. It had to be a change, and so he definitely picked a good time. Happy that the court's named after him. He is a heck of a coach. Love that guy. Love the candy that he tosses to the crowd, and he's just a class act. Great coach as well, and his players loved him. That's one of my favorite things about Buzz right now, by the way, too. I don't know if you saw when Q stepped off the court the other night on Wednesday for the last home game, last one in Reed Arena, and it was all love for Buzz from him. So I think his comments, which Joe Lunardi said that his response to getting left out of the playoff was suspect. I told him, I said, I don't believe that at all. I think other players think that it was good, not just ours, and I think recruits are watching it too. I'll just toss this in there real quick. You always kind of keep an eye on these kinds of things, whether or not a coach is a player's coach, or if he's unrelatable, those kinds of things. There's good sides to both, right? And surely you're kind of looking for a balance. I think he's got it so far, but it definitely seems like he's at least got the players behind him. That's extremely important. So when those players aren't quite behind you, and I don't mean just like on your side, not giving their all, you start seeing problems, right? So anyways, we'll see what turns out for softball. Really hope those girls can get it turned around. They're so fun to watch. It's a great place to see a game. So we'll see what they do the rest of the season. If you got something, might as well go ahead, because we're going to get into the Rudder Foundation right after this. So we talked about it a couple weeks ago, and the battalion had pointed out that there was a Rudder Foundation, and I had mentioned this in conjunction with all the stuff going on with President Banks, the battalion seemingly being censured, and just some things that looked kind of political going on. Again, behind the scenes, not exactly transparent. Lo and behold, here we go. We've got some distrust going on, as we've seen in the NCAA tournament. A lot of distrust there now, because why? It's not transparent. What is President Banks doing? Not sure. It's not transparent. What was the Rudder Foundation doing in all this, where there's been alleged some misbehavior coming from them in this organization? Well, so I read the piece in the battalion. I encourage you to go over and read it, see it for yourself. I actually thought the piece was really well done. It is extremely long. So I might have skimmed over the last third of it. But I thought the BAT, again, did a great job of just delivering information. That's really what I needed from them. I didn't need all the opinion, and that's what I got. And in this case, it was very important that I didn't hear their opinion, that I got to hear the facts and make up my own mind, because I'm capable of doing that. I don't need to be talked at and patronized, right? So here's what I took away from reading that piece. I get that The Rudder Foundation is forming connections, has connections with upper admin at A&M. I think this includes President Banks. It may include Chancellor Sharp and at least a couple regents. I don't think that's wrong on its face. I think there's plenty of people that are going on like that. And these are my opinions. So again, you should get on over there and read it and formulate all this from that. The more people that read it, the more people that comment about it and we talk about it, the better the consensus will be on what's happening with this situation. So one of the things that was communicated, it seemed like to me, was that the foundation was formed in large part to at least confront what was seemingly some culture issues that have been cropping up. And I think I've kind of noticed these as well. And this is a little bit about what I was talking about. I'm not sure whether or not the president's trying to move us in one way, which is a way I'm not real confident in, or if the university, student body, just the dynamics on campus have moved one way, and it's a way that maybe I don't like, and president's trying to move us back. Not real sure on that one. So still formulating some ideas there. But they were not completely satisfied with the way the culture has been, and they want to influence that. How do they want to influence that? Well, they want to have input in different things, or they want want to know what's kind of going on and shed light, it seems like, on certain things. These things span from, and one particular example is fish camp, like what's happening at fish camp. Overall, the stuff that I read just seemed very benign. Like they wanted to, know that things were being done in a kosher way. So, for instance, somebody pointed out to them whether or not they were in favor of, say, I think it's Aggieland or an LGBT like Pride Parade or something along those lines or whatever. And I think they were very straightforward, saying no. They recognize the First Amendment and the freedom of speech aspect, and they would not want to do anything to silence that. That's what I read from there, and I was completely on board with that. I think that's the right aspect. It doesn't seem like to me that they're targeting any specific group of people, but maybe are concerned with ideals and values. For instance, are Aggies at Fish Camp being taught about Aggie ways, or are they being taught things that pervert those ideas? We talked about this before. Aggies don't lie, cheat, steal, or tolerate those who do. And there are subtle ways to sneak in different ways to lie, cheat, and steal. I'm not going to get into those again tonight, but there are ways to do that. So, you see some things and you start wondering. They feel a little awkward. They start to raise red flags, and so you start to investigate. And it seems like that's essentially what we're looking to do. I just did not get a nefarious sense from them. But maybe I missed something. Maybe there was an instance where somebody did something specific, or I would even classify maybe as localized. I didn't explicitly see that though, but I would like to leave a little room for that in case it did. But I would caution on that, because taking a single incident and then applying it to the whole would be a massive logical fallacy. It just would not follow that because one instance you've got this, that follows that everything else is incorrect, and that's basically an ad hominem attack. Pointing out someone's character and saying like, well, you're no good at that. Obvious example being like, well, my right arm is going bad, therefore my entire body is worthless, and that's not correct. That's not how that works, right? So pointing out one example and then applying it to the rest is just not correct. One of the things that they brought up was, I think this was formed in response, as I understand, to the movement in 2020 about the Sol Rawls statue. And so I didn't get the specifics on where they stood specifically on that. I think it was along the lines of they wanted it to stay up versus there was people wanting it to stay down. And so, yeah, just wanting to combat the culture and talk about open and honest about the way things as they saw them. And I don't see anything wrong with that. I had no problem with Mond and the rest of the students going over and saying their piece. To me, it did it in a very respectful way. And Aggies worked through this as we should have done. And I think we were stronger for it. So I'm sure there'll be more developed on this. Like I said, read up on it. Figure it out for yourself. I don't want to insert my opinion in for you, but it's important that you know. So do that. Some other goings-ons. Do you keep up with the other sports very much? Equestrian, men and women's golf. It can be hard. So I just want to give you a few notes on that because there's definitely some highlights here. Equestrian finished the regular season, I think, in the last 2 weeks, and third in the nation in regular season. They're on to, the postseason here. Men's golf recently won the Louisiana Classic, hosted by the Raging Cajuns. The women's golf took fourth at the Mountain View Collegiate, hosted by K-State. Women and men's tennis are 12th, 20-1 overall, and 25th, 14-8, and that's respectively. And we got a new women's basketball coach, Coach Joni Taylor. Got us a peach of a coach, right? She's coming over from Georgia. I believe 2021 won SEC Coach of the Year. She was introduced at the last game at Reed Arena on Wednesday night, playing against Wake Forest. So, welcome, Coach Taylor. Glad to have you, and I look forward to seeing what you're going to do with your career. So, no spring football updates tonight. Kind of looking forward. We're going to have, I believe, a scrimmage coming up. Is it this weekend, Saturday? And so I believe there'll be some film coming out. We'll get to see a little bit of what's going on. I'm sure we won't get a full look unless you've got, that VIP press pass, which I don't have. However, we'll probably be able to glean some very interesting things. Hearing just a little bit, and the big name that I left out last week was Toon Meese. I don't know if y'all realize that. I expect him at defensive end sometime this next season. I can't imagine he doesn't get in. It'd be interesting to see, though, what that rotation looks like. And he's definitely going to be in there. Definitely. So, hearing really big things about Evan Stewart. And one interesting development I heard is that Ernest Crownover is up to like 280 pounds. I believe he was our backup running back. So that defies the mind. And we'll see what Jimbo's going to craft out of this. So we will talk about that scrimmage once it happens, and I'll give you some more updates afterwards. Otherwise, spring game is April 9th. Looking forward to that. I'm trying to plan to get there. Hopefully you can too. Again, if you haven't, like and subscribe. Glad that you helped me. I actually just hit 500 subscribers, I think, just the other day. That's a big win for me. I'll take it. And hey, loving it so far. Hope you are too. If you haven't already, do all that. And we'll see you in about a week or so with some more updates, and I'll get you some more info. Until then, thanks and gig 'em.